Great. Well, it's a pleasure and honor to have you and your son, Dr. Roger, to come here today on behalf of the Headmaster's Heritage Committee and Auckland Grammar. It's an honor to have you here to speak with us today with the oldest living old boy, yourself,
Yes.
Dr. Juda Laurence Reynolds,
Yes.
class of 28.
Yes, that's right.
So you entered Auckland Grammar in 1928. The antibiotics penicillin was invented.
Yes.
Can you recall your first or most vivid memory at Auckland Grammar as a young student?
Yes, the size of the hall. So many students, and especially in the upstairs gallery, it was full. So to me it was quite demanding. Oh, that's not the word demanding, quite
overwhelming?
Yes, it made me a bit shaky in the fact it was the establishment was so big, something I'd never entered before. So it was difficult coping with it. I suppose that applies to all young students.
When we talked yesterday, you said it wasn't so much the discovery of penicillin that kind of impacted on the time that you were at school, but you told me that it was the aftermath of the First World War.
Oh, that's right.
So do you want to tell Mark a little bit about how that affected the school?
How it affected the school. Well, of course, it had a big effect on the masters for a kick-off, because so many of them had been in one of the Air Force or Army, mostly Army, of course, and it was very much in their vision, if you like, their wartime experiences. Not that they talked much about them, but it's the way they handled themselves that told you that they'd been through a lot. Yes.
Great. And Roger, what was your first or most vivid memory at Auckland Grammar?
Well, a little bit like my dad, feeling somewhat overawed by the numbers of pupils in my year. And I mean, I remember to this day having Henry Cooper striding out at the front of the assembly and arriving at the lectern in his cape and rolling his cape around his arm and giving the boys a good shakedown when they needed it. And I remember sitting the exam by which we were streamed at the beginning, and then all of us arraigned on benches where the third formers sit, and one by one our names were called as to which class we would be in. That was a kind of an exciting and somewhat challenging moment at the beginning of one's school experience.
I don't think it was like that when I...
Maybe not.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. I didn't have that experience of being called for a particular form.
Okay, interesting.
What were your memories of your headmaster, Mr. Mann?
Very good memories. He was very kind to me. Yes, because I needed I needed to take special absences because of my faith. I would go to the Auckland Hebrew congregation to attend services there on special occasions. And this was all very much made easy, if you like, by the headmaster. Yes.
That's great. And can you describe the ambience of the school back then?
Yes, in a sense I can, in that so many of the boys were the sons of farmers. They left their parents' homes on the farm and were boarders in some part of Auckland. And they had an influence on school activities in the sense that at playtime they were very much at home in some activities such as firing a rifle. Yes, and of course what's the game around the course? Fives.
The fives on the five schools.
Yeah. Yes. So there was always a lineup, people waiting to play.
Yeah.
Fives, yes. Very, very good.
What were your memories of the ambience of the school when you were a student at Auckland Grammar?
I guess, it was a busy school. You know, there was always a lot going on. I do remember the sense of expectation, and it used to be said, you know, that Auckland Grammar was like an industry churning out, you know, top students, and that they were put under huge pressure from day one. I don't remember that, but what I do remember was that there was quite a sense of competition between the boys themselves. So how it was engendered, I'm not sure, but we ended up certainly quite competitive. So that was I think one of the features of the school was that there was quite a lot of competition. I mean, looking back now, I see all sorts of other things that would have completely escaped me at the time. You know, it was a very Pākehā environment. There were very few Māori or Pacifica students, although those who were there, particularly those who were very good at sports, were very popular. They were among the most popular of the boys at the school. But there was very little other recognition of anything other than a sort of European culture in the school. So it was a very European place.
Now, Dr. Laurence, can you remember what are your happiest memories at Auckland Grammar? Whether that is the staff or the masters or the headmaster or your friends, what are your happiest memories?
Well, it's an interesting question. Very interesting question, and I suppose it wasn't really I had the odd, very close student friend, of course, but my memories really are of the masters themselves.
You told me yesterday about the Latin master who gave you extra lessons.
Oh, yes, he did. Man. Wasn't that his name?
Well, that was the headmaster. I'm not sure who the Latin master was.
Oh, the Latin master was...
Going back a long way.
I did know his name. I do know his name. It escapes me at the moment. Do you remember?
No, I don't. Why were you having the extra Latin lessons?
Oh, because I wanted to go to Dunedin to do medicine.
Yes.
That was the reason, yes.
So they needed to matriculate in Latin in order to be able to go to medical school.
Yes, do you realise that? You had to matriculate in Latin to get into the medical school. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
But that's how it was.
And who made that happen? I think it was your mother, wasn't it? Didn't your mother come up to the school and insist
Yes, she did.
that you'd be put into that class?
Yes, you're quite right, she did. It was an extraordinary interview that my mother had. And it had an influence on the way the school thought about incoming young men, young students.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it did influence them.
And what about you, Dr. Roger? What were your happiest memories or your most fond memories?
Oh, I think really just around the friendships that I made. So my class remained pretty constant, surprisingly, from the third form all the way through to what was then called the upper sixth, so that we were constantly with the same group of about 35 boys. And I had very many really close friendships, and I think looking back, that was the loveliest part of my school experience. Just those friendships. And my parents kept our home open, so to myself and my sisters, we were always encouraged to have our friends come home and play or whatever. So
Yes,
the home was always full of young people.
Yeah, that's right.
Including my friends, which was
we
a lovely,
encouraged them to come.
Yes, which was a lovely part of the whole experience.
And for you, Dr. Roger, how has Auckland Grammar...
Oh, Dr. Laurence.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Laurence. Two doctors in the family.
It's hard.
Dr. Laurence, how has Auckland Grammar changed you as a man from your teenage years growing up?
Oh, what a difficult question. Well, of course, my fellow students came from everywhere. There were, the sons of farmers, the sons of businessmen, and I don't know, you'd have to put the question another way, I think.
Have there been any lessons or life lessons that you might have been taught at grammar, or some key values that you lived on throughout your life?
Oh, that's another big question. Yes, I think so.
We talked about it yesterday, Dad, and you talked about your dedication to learning as something that you...
Oh, that absolutely. My parents were insistent that I went to school to learn, and that homework was an essential and something that had to be done virtually daily. And I would sit in a little room upstairs in our home to do my homework. It was so insistent that homework was done. Yes. So they were so my parents were very keen that I should complete my education by doing my homework properly, and yes.
You really acquired a habit of lifelong learning from that.
Yes, I did. That's a good way of expressing it. Yes. Yes, that's right. Because I went into several fields after that to learn a lot more about a lot of things. Yes, people and their languages. I was quite interested in that.
So I think these days the word would be self-directed learning. I don't think such a phrase existed in those days, but my dad, that was definitely something that he acquired during his years at the school.
Yes, that's right.
And now, which do you think you have the most of? Talent, intelligence, education, or persistence?
What a question. Each one in turn. Go through them again.
Which do you think you have the most of? The following: talent, intelligence, education, or persistence?
Education. Yeah, that was everything. Getting home and doing your homework was so important.
So I would say my observation of my dad is education and determination. So, a word that's not quite here. It's just, a slight variation. It's a sort of persistence, but more than just persisting, but persisting in a really determined
Yes,
way.
it was education was so important. It was everything for a young man or young boy to become well educated.
Do you have any special sayings or expressions?
Any special sayings or expressions? Well, Roger, you would know because I would express them, so you would know them. I can't think of them.
No, my dad doesn't really have any, except if he's surprised about something, he will say, "Oh, my hat."
Yes, you're quite right. So I would.
"Oh, my hat." That's his little characteristic expression.
as an old boy of AGS, seeing it grow over time, what would you like to see or can see Auckland Grammar being within the next 10 to 20 years?
Auckland Grammar, how it would develop. Well, the masters in my day were all rounders. They were not stuck in any particular branch of learning or sport. They were all rounders in education and in sport, and they enjoyed or encouraged their sports as well as learning. Yes, and of course, because of those features, they would arrange the way you sat in class. So it's not where you chose to sit, it's where you were told to sit.
Sort of seating plan.
Yes. That must be unusual.
So do you think the school should keep that focus on people becoming all-rounders, or do you think they should turn out boys with special skills?
No, I think all-rounders is the way to go. That's my personal view.
Now, there are some ages which we don't look forward to, but what birthday were you least enthusiastic about?
What birthday?
Yes.
What birthday? What an unusual question. I suppose I was growing up and taking out girls and preparing myself, I suppose, to get married. So, what's the question?
Well, was there a particular age that you were not happy to cross, like when you turned 30 or 40 or 50? Did you think, oh, I'm getting old, or don't want that to happen, or did you never have that feeling?
I don't think I ever had
I don't think you
that
did.
feeling. No.
So,
The world was always an open place.
Yes, a remarkable aspect of my dad is that in all my life he has only ever looked forward. Yes.
Now to just the final question, what was your least or most favourite subject?
Oh, my least or most favourite subject.
What did you enjoy doing
grammar.
most?
Hmm?
What did you enjoy doing most?
Oh, physics. Yes, chemistry.
Chemistry and physics.
Yes, chemistry and physics.
Was there a subject you didn't enjoy very much?
Yes, learning Latin. And yes, I suppose that sums it up.
What about you, Dr. Roger? What were your favourite or your least?
After the sixth form year, so we all, quite, as you know from the honours board in my year, quite a few of my classmates got university scholarships from sixth form, and then we all came back for the seventh form year, upper sixth as it was. And the greatest thing that I got out of my final year at school was my English teaching. We had a wonderful English teacher, Mr. McRae, and he encouraged us to read contemporary literature. So in particular, a lot of at that time, we're talking nearly 60 years ago. But the American authors in particular, who, of the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, yes. So, and that, gave me a lifelong love of literature.
Yes, indeed.
So for me, that was the greatest thing in my final year, and that's what I'm most grateful that I took away from school, because, doing the sciences and the maths and stuff was sort of automatic, but it wasn't a given that you would leave school with some special, love of literature. And undoubtedly that really helped me, and I know some of my friends also feel that was what was most important about the final year or two at school.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Laurence and Dr. Roger Reynolds, for coming to speak to us today about your time at Grammar. It's a true honour for me, and on the behalf of Auckland Grammar and the Headmaster's Heritage Committee, to have you here today to speak with us about your memories of Auckland Grammar and some of the philosophies of life that you've had and some key things you've took from life.
Well, I'm grateful that I was asked, and very pleased to answer your questions and let you know how I felt about Auckland Grammar.
Yeah.
Yes, it formed my life, what I learnt at Auckland Grammar. That led me through my life. And I'm an old man now.
You are indeed.
Yes, so it stood through for me right through my life. You see, it's so important.
So, how many years since he left? How many years since you left school? I mean, it's 90 years or 89 years since he left school.
Yes, that's right. It is. Very, very long time.
Yeah.
But it stays with you.
Yes.
You don't forget your schooling. Well, at least I've never forgotten mine.
Yeah.
And the people around me and the masters who taught me, I still remember them. And occasionally I meet up with one of them.
Not the masters anymore.
That's right.
Well, thank you so
Very
much.
good. Okay, Mark, thank
Well,
you. It was very nice.
Thank you for giving us this interview.